This is the Meaningful Content Mixer. We are your co-hosts. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Bonnie. This podcast is for content creators seeking inspiration across disciplines to create more meaningful content.
From pre-sales to post-sales, we want to learn from each other because we are experienced enough to know how much we don't know yet.
Let's get started.
Hi, Alan. So great to have you on the podcast today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm curious to get started if you can tell us a little bit about your background in content.
Oh, wow. How long have we got? As you can tell from the gray hairs, I've been in this game a long time. Started out as a technical writer. First job out of college was writing tech manuals for Concord, which is pretty cool, but also gives my age away. But started out in tech pubs manager, consultant, then sort of moved over to the software vendor side of technical communications. And then probably for the latter half of my career has been more around content marketing and customer experience, both working for vendors that supply into that space, working for large organizations that are building up their technology around that area, and also doing some consulting. And writing a few books on the side.
Yes. Speaking of books, I know you have a new one just published. We'll definitely be talking about that. First, I just have to say, I love that your background, that your start is in technical writing. Both Bonnie and I started our career in technical writing. So we always feel a kinship to people who did the same. Such great foundational skill set. Do you feel that there's things that you sort of honed as a technical writer that you're still using today?
Yeah, I think it's a great foundation for anybody that wants to write. You can probably see on the wall behind me, there's some other book covers. I write fiction as well, and I actually find the structure. I take a very structured approach to writing my fiction. I outline it, and very much like I would a piece of technical documentation. So I have a very disciplined approach to writing, irrespective of whether it's technical documentation, marketing, fiction, non-fiction, and a lot of that just comes from starting out as a technical writer, and just building those skills and discipline, So I think anybody, I've got a lot of friends who are writers, and I've always, and when we do conventions and things, people come up, and like, how do I start writing? I want to be a writer, and I often say, get a job in technical writing. It may not be, writing the great American novel, but one, you'll get paid for it. And get benefits, hopefully. And two, you'll just learn so many foundational techniques and skills that even if later on you go on to, be a novelist or screenwriter or whatever, just those, or move into technology or consulting or management or whatever, it just gives you so many foundational skills.
You saying that is so interesting. I've often thought about how technical writing, Bonnie and I have talked about how it is such a foundation for other types of, business and software communication or even marketing, but I haven't thought about it as a useful foundation for something that seems almost as opposite as fictional writing. So I love that perspective.
Well, there's two sort of fictional writing. There's what we call plotters and pantsers, which is, I'm a plotter that I structure stuff out, and I do have friends who are what we call pantsers, and basically they just start with a blank page and just keep writing and writing and writing and writing, and they jump by the seat of their pants. But I can't do that. I have to have an outline.
I'm excited to learn more about this book that you just published. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll give the obligatory plug. Hang on a second. Here we go. There we go. All right. CX Trinity. Customers, Content and Context just came out from XML Press. This is my third book from XML Press. This is basically a collection of 52 of my favorite blog posts from the last 5 years around customer experience and content. I chose 52 because the idea was you could either read it from front to back if you want, or you could just dip in once a week over a cup of coffee. Each little chapter section is designed to be read in sort of less than 10 to 15 minutes. But we went through and basically updated and rewrote some of the essays. But the idea is it just walks you through how you can really improve your customer experience by thinking about connecting your customers with your content in the right context, which often, actually in a lot of cases, doesn't happen. But the idea is that you can sort of dip in and out and get a little bit of inspirational thought process from each of the essays in there. As the title says, it's sort of organized into thoughts around the customers and customer experience, thoughts around content creation, and then thoughts around the context and how you bring those together, and how your customers are acting in context, and the things you need to think about in terms of the context that your customers are interacting with your content to get the best customer experience.
Yeah, and this is like the prime time to be publishing this too, because this is such a big topic right now. The space that I'm in right now, we're really focused on self-service content and
Mm-hmm.
getting content to customers quickly, but there is often that missing piece, which is context. And you can't just do an information dump and expect people to find what they need without that context. So that's interesting.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of companies do that. They create content for the sake of creating content. They throw it out there, and they expect the customers to go find it. And
Yeah.
people don't have time to go find stuff these days. You have to deliver it to them based on what they're doing and what platform they're doing it off and what problem they're trying to solve.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts a little bit more on customer experience. Maybe first, just as an overall discipline, maybe what attracted you to focusing on customer experience when you first started diving in? And folks often get it wrong. So do people sometimes think they're doing customer experience and they're misdirected, or how can you give some guidance there?
Yeah, actually, I think sometimes they are misdirected because in a lot of organizations, customer experience is still looked on as an inside-out activity, and it's about checking a lot of boxes. The thing that drives me nuts recently, and I've got several essays in the book about it, is surveys. The number of companies that put out surveys, and they check a box. Oh, yes, we're listening to the voice of the customer and we're doing customer experience because we put out a survey. Numerous things wrong with that. If everybody puts out surveys, no, it's the equivalent of nobody putting out surveys. It's meaningless. Very, very few people actually respond to surveys.
Yep.
If they do, it's because they've got something to say, so they're already self-selecting. You're not going to get people in the middle. The only people who are going to fill out surveys are people who are really pleased or really pissed off. And the vast majority of companies just store the data and do nothing with it. They can go to the CEO and say, yes, we're listening to the voice of the customers. We put out these surveys, but are they actually doing anything with the information they collect? And even if they are looking at it, what they're looking at is figures. They're not looking at the story of why people are responding the way they are. That's doing customer experience wrong. For me, customer experience done right is understanding the customer, understanding what problems they're trying to solve, giving them the tools to do that, and building a relationship with them. There's two ways of looking at customer experiences. The customer's point of view, where you want a continuous, frictionless experience with the brand all the way through from thinking about something to buying it, to taking delivery, and to using it. And then there's the company viewpoint, which is you want to build a ongoing, continuous relationship with the customers so they will come back and buy more, or even better, recommend to a friend to buy more. So you have to build that relationship to drive revenue from the business point of view, and from the customer point of view, you want to build a relationship so you actually enjoy dealing with that organization. It's two sides of the same coin, but at the center of both of them is building a relationship and having a continuous customer experience, irrespective of who you're dealing with in an organization. It's amazing how many companies make it difficult for you to give them money.
Yes.
Which I've never understood, but there is an amazing amount of companies who make it very difficult for you to pay your bills. Like I say, delivery, what is it? Unpackaging, what's the packaging look like? How easy is it to actually get to the product? How easy for me to start using the product? Who do I talk to if something goes wrong?
You called out unpackaging a product. I recently had this experience where we bought a new bed frame, and in the packaging for this bed frame, all it is a metal bed frame, right? So not a fancy bed or anything, just the frame. They came with a little note, a little tool for you to use. And it wasn't one of those cheap, crappy tools. It was really nice. Yeah. And it had a really nice note. And my husband, who was the one actually putting it together, was like, because he knows I'm into like customer experience. He's like, check this out. Isn't this a great experience? I think I would use them again.
Exactly. Yeah. That's thinking things through. Again, it's one of the areas that I've sort of written about and talked about a lot is making sure that the digital experience and the physical experience actually work together. And there's a story I tell in the book about when my fridge started to leak, and I went on the website to see if we were still in warranty, and I was filling in all the stuff on the website, and then it got to, what's the fridge serial number? I'm like, well, I don't know. Let me go find out. So I go to the fridge and I open the fridge doors, and there's, stickers everywhere, but none of them say serial number. So I write down every single number I can find, go back to the thing. It won't accept any of them. And it's like, okay, there's a 1-800 number. So I call the 1-800 number, and I'm like, I just want to find out if this fridge is still in warranty. She's like, well, what's the serial number? I'm like, I don't know where. And she's like, it's on a sticker. I'm like, where's the sticker? And she says, on the back of the fridge.
On the back.
I'm like, on the back of the fridge that's against a wall with cabinetry around it, you're basically telling me I have to dismantle my kitchen cabinets and haul my fridge out. That is a disconnect in your customer experience. If you want that information put in on your website, it should be easily accessible for the customer. There should be a sticker inside the door that says serial number.
Right.
Yeah.
That's disconnecting the physical product production. It's probably easy for them on the production line to throw a sticker on the back because that's a very simple, low cost, easy task to do.
Yeah.
But it's useless from a customer perspective. And if you're asking for that in the digital environment, you've got to make sure the two match. So, and Sarah, you asked what got me into customer experience. It's things like that got me into customer experience. And I would just fume at it. My wife just like, why don't you just write a blog post about it? And so I started writing as well as writing things about content, I started to write blog posts on my website about customer experience stories. So a lot of what I write about are sort of personal experiences, and my wife sort of hates what she started because every time we're out shopping and something goes wrong, she's like, "Uh-oh, there's another blog post."
Yeah, I was going to say, so I haven't read your book yet. I certainly will, but I have read a lot of your blog posts and essays over the years. I feel like I remember a common thread of your posts being inspired by everyday life, being at a restaurant or being out shopping or some sort of experience. Like as a consumer, it seems like you're always paying attention to lessons you can learn or takeaways that we can then apply, on the industry side.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's what a lot of folks do. And again, when I've been consulting around this, it amazes me how many people who are in charge of customer experience have never tried to buy anything from their own company. You just mentioned the book come out. Even though I get shipped a box of free copies of the book, the first thing I ever do when I have a new book come out is actually go on Amazon and buy a copy. One, because I tend to get a copy quicker in my hands quicker than the publisher ships them. But two, I want to know what the experience is like for somebody who's buying my book.
Yeah.
What does it say on Amazon? How easy is it to buy? How long is it going to take to get there? What does a physical product look like when I actually get it in my hand? I want to be one of the first people to experience that. So if there is any issues, I can address it up front.
Yeah, I love that. Well, hopefully, along the way, you're making things better for consumers everywhere or inspiring other people to do that.
I hope so. I mean, we're all somebody else's customer. Yeah. We're all consumers. We're all somebody else's customers. We have a certain personal level of expectation of the sort of services we get. So shouldn't your company be delivering at least to that same level of experience or even better than you're prepared to accept as a consumer yourself? You don't change philosophies the day you walk. I was going to say walk into the office, but we don't walk into the office anymore. But you know what I mean? When you go to work, we don't switch off what our level of expectation is for a customer experience. So that's what we should be delivering at least as a baseline to our own customers.
Yeah. In fact, even at work, we're often still acting as consumers when we're using hardware, software, websites, apps to get our job done. And how often are we frustrated throughout the day or wasting time throughout the day using someone else's product and then not thinking about, well, are we creating this for our own customers?
Exactly. Are we doing the same thing? Yeah.
So let's just say a company is doing a bunch of surveys and they get data, but they're not doing anything with it. How do you take action on that data? What's something that you can do to just quickly take action?
One is spotting the trends. Like I said, if there's a trend of, well, we always get that question, is start asking, why are we always getting that question? What's driving that? Analytics tells you what somebody did at a certain point in time. What you're actually looking at is the past. All analytics are doing is giving you a view of the past. What you need to do is think about what does that mean for the present and what does that mean for the future? So it's not just what did somebody do, but why did they do it? Why did they make that comment? You need storytellers, basically. These are great opportunities for people who've got those skills, who can take data and can extrapolate from it and explain it in easy, understandable terms to step up and say, I can help. No, I'm not a data scientist, but if you give me those data points, I've got the skills where I can actually connect the dots and start to understand why people are doing with it. I'll go out and interview people. But again, this is where tech doc people can be really good. It's in terms of helping understand why somebody's doing it. There's the basic writing journalism thing of the 5 W's, who, why, what, why, when. We tend to forget the why and the when in business. We focus on who it is, what they're doing, where they're doing it, what page and website, but we never think about why they're doing it and very rarely think about when. I will say in terms of when I did and content and context, I did a great project with a newspaper, and they figured out that in the morning, when you went to their app in the morning, you actually got a long form piece of content that could read. So if it was between like 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. and you went to the web page, you got long form content. But if you went to the same page between like 10 and 3, when people were either out grabbing a coffee or getting a quick lunch, you've got a short form piece of content, because they were thinking about the context of when people were reading their content. And in the morning, it's like, well, a lot of folks are, because they were in a big city, it was like a lot of folks are on the metro or on the train. They've got 20 minutes, half an hour to read something. Later in the day, they've got like 10 minutes in the line at Starbucks, or they're grabbing a takeaway. So we just give them a short piece of content. That was a smart thinking about when people are looking at it and why they're looking at it.
We talk about context all the time, but I love that example because it's easy to just talk about context and acknowledge that it's important. But the example you just gave is a very clear thing that you can do about context. Here's something that I can make dynamic based off of context, and a change I can make, a way I can meaningfully alter the customer experience based off of their context. And
another example I had was a client where they basically connected their content management system to a weather app. You know, if the temperature was below a certain thing, you got content about keeping warm. Or it was in the Midwest, so you know they talk about using a snow blower or things like that, or the flights would be delayed. And if it was warm, it would be, you get content about, you know, making sure that you don't stay out in the sun too long and things like that. So the context was driven by the environment, what was happening in the environment around them.
Are there any positive examples, like actual companies or brands that you've experienced that you think are really getting this right?
Okay, I'll give you 2 examples from this morning. So my local diner here in Texas during the lockdown, when they could start to reopen, they literally reconfigured the inside of the diner to make it safe. And we've been going there like every Saturday morning for like 15 years. That's our routine. And they have a lot of people who do that. They have a lot of regulars. It's a nice local diner, and everybody, you know, knows everybody else. We know all the staff. We were in there today, and as you probably read in Texas, you know, the governor decided that, you know, this thing's disappeared and we can all go back. We were like, what are you guys going to do starting next week? Now the mandate's been lifted. And they were like, well, to be honest, we're not 100% sure, but we're asking all our regulars what they want to do.
Oh.
And she said, and all our regulars have said, if you take all this stuff down and go back to open tables, we're not coming in. And then the head waitress was like, yeah, she said, I'm not taking my mask off. So for me, that was like, they're listening to their customers. Yeah. Yes, they may have a mandate from on high, but they're listening to their customers as to what they want and how they want to do it. They're surveying their customers, but they're listening. They're not just getting a yes, no answer. They're getting a no, because if you do this, I won't come. But if you do the other, yes, we will.
Right.
You know, and they said to us, the majority, it's their regulars that's kept them in business during the pandemic. If it wasn't for the regulars, they would have gone out of business. So they're listening to their regular customers.
Right.
So they're doing it right. So that's a very personal one-to-one. But the other one I talked about the physical and the digital. The other one I think has really got it right is Starbucks, because it's pretty much a seamless experience, whether you order your coffee on the mobile app and collect it in drive-through, or the mobile app and you walk in the store. Certainly my local store has a separate area. You can walk in, it's all screened off, everything's labeled, and you can go pick it up, minimum of human contact. They, you know, increase the number, the drive-through hours here, because the lines are always huge. My local one, if the line gets beyond a certain point, they close down the digital speaker and they actually have somebody go out with a tablet and take your orders going down the line. You never have to re-say your name. Everything works smoothly. So they've really merged changing the digital environment, accelerated their digital transformation during the pandemic, but also kept the things that made the experience, that personal experience, knowing your local barista, them knowing you drink, and the fact that you can use the app, or, you know, if you want to walk in the store and still order it, even though, you know, you can't sit there anymore and relax or anything. But they've kept it really. And you can see the difference between that and some of the more boutique local coffee places, which a few of them have gone out of business and a few of the others are struggling, but the lines at Starbucks are still mega long. Yes, I got it here. I know it's more expensive. I know it's a bit homogenized, but it's a great experience, and I'll keep going back every Saturday morning after on our way home from the diner, we go get a coffee.
Yeah.
So, I think those are sort of two examples. One is the very personal experience, and the other is really managing that physical digital transformation really well. So
I had a recent experience at Target doing in-store pickup. I forget why when I had ordered the in-store pickup, I had somehow selected that I would go into the store to pick it up. But then, of course, when I pull up into the parking lot, there's all these spots that you can pull into that they'll come bring it to your car. So I'm on the app trying to say, like, I'm here, bring me my order, or do I have to go get it? And they had a large button. They recognized my order. They could detect that my order was set for me to walk in and pick it up. And there's a button that said, did you change your mind and you want to have someone bring it to your car instead? I'm sure it was wordsmithed better than that, but it was that call to action. And I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, this app is reading my mind. I am here, and I would prefer someone to bring it to my car. And there was a button that I could click and it was done. So they kind of anticipated me changing my mind, that exception.
Yeah.
And it was seamless.
And probably because they've actually had so many people do that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's part of our customer behavior. We need to build it in to the customer experience process rather than, we get a lot of that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And or we get a lot of that. We should make sure that we're being clear in our messaging, like earlier on in that cycle. Well, no, you can actually, there's multiple times that you can pivot or address those changes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not, you should have read that on the 3 web pages ago.
Right. And that's what the FAQ says, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you didn't do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we're talking about, this seamless customer experience, involves a lot of resources and effort.
Oh, it does. Yeah. I know the local coffee shop can't compete with that, but the local coffee shop, like my local diner, can compete on the personal, my local diner has, 2 other stores around town. Some of the other big breakfast chains have gone because they don't have that sort of person-to-person personalized thing. The mandate comes down from head office. You shall do X. Well, the local guys can be there, listen to the customers. What do they want? What is our local customer? So that's
they're creating that loyalty.
So it comes back. That's how you get loyalty, is those relationships. Yeah. So it comes back to the people-to-people type thing. Yeah,
that's a great point. I think my thought was going to be that, well, of course, these bigger companies with all the resources, they're always going to mostly do it better than the smaller folks. But to your point, if you're smaller and you don't have, unlimited resources to pull this off, think about what you do have control over. What is your competitive advantage? What's your value? What is the nature of your relationship with your customers, and how can you cultivate that to make the best experience that you can?
Why were they coming to you in the first place?
Yeah.
What was it that made them come to you in the first place? Focus on that. Don't worry about the things that you can't control.
Right.
Focus on the things that you can control.
Right. If you can't develop $1 million app, but what can you do?
Yeah.
We like to find inspiration in unexpected places. And so we like to ask our guests, where do you find inspiration?
To a large extent, find inspiration just doing everyday stuff, particularly around the customer service. But my special inspiration is my 2 granddaughters. There's actually an essay in the book called, if you want to know the future of customer experience, ask a 3-year-old. But she's 4 now, and she reminds me every time I see her. It was her birthday recently. So it's actually just watching them, because as they're growing up, they're experiencing the world with they're not coming at it with any preconceived ideas of how things work or the way they should work. They just know that they have something they want to do, or something they want to see, or something they want to get hold of. And just seeing how they interact with technology, how they interact with the world is great inspiration. Even from the age of 2, they would walk up to a cell phone and go, "Hey Siri." If they see a phone, they know about voice assistants at the age of 2. They know about touch screens. I'm convinced that neither of them will touch a keyboard growing up. I think voice interaction, touch screens, facial recognition. Maybe less touch screens now, because we don't all want to be sharing our germs quite so much.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
But I certainly think voice recognition is going to be massive as they, there's still problems with accents and regional variations and colloquialisms and things like that. We still don't really engineer the content to deliver. This is a whole other podcast, but we don't engineer the content to deliver things like chatbots and voice assistants correctly yet. We've still got a long way to go. But I think as my grandkids get older, that's going to be the norm, that they're just going to do, the user interface is going to be audio and video, I think. So every time I'm with them, I'm watching what they're doing, how they're interacting with technology. It just fascinates me watching them start to navigate their way through the world as potential new users of technology and new consumers. So.
Wonderful. I love that perspective. Okay, well, thank you again for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. It was great to be on the show. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alan.
All right.